Hello everyone, what's up? In tonight's video I'm going to show you how to easily create chipping effects using liquid mask and also when to use what I call mechanical weathering. Whether you're a wargamer or a scale modeler, if you want to learn more about weathering, start now by subscribing and clicking the bell. This is what the tank looked like after applying a.k.a. Interactive's black primer with macro filler and then some highlights with the white version of the same product. The reason I use this highly toxic lacquer primer is that I knew I would be quite rough in this model in later stages, and with resin I find that it's better to err on the side of caution. But let's get started, shall we? For the base coat I went with my usual chipping layer combo of Tamiya whole red and flat black in equal parts, mixed 50% with Tamiya lacquer thinner, and then sprayed around 20 psi. By the way, this would have been sufficient for any plastic model, but for resin I wanted to have the extra security of the primer before the next step. As you can see, I first sprayed this mix in a very thin mist. The paint is quite transparent, and I go from one side of the tank to another, building up the opacity gradually. Let's speed things up while I explain my process a bit more, shall we? Now you might be wondering why it is that I'm using Tamiya paints, and whether or not the rest of the tutorial will be applicable if you're using water-based acrylics. Well, if you're a regular watcher, you know that I normally use either lacquer or lacquer-like paints, like in this case, because of their superior sprayability, so to speak, and toughness. Now, can you use other paints like, I don't know, Vallejo Model Air? Well, yes you can, but I would argue that you won't get as much out of them. More on that later. Here you can see something that happens to me all the time. No harm, no foul, fortunately. By the way, if you're a Patreon supporter, I hope that you took notes about those answers before, because this is probably going to be in our next channel quiz. Anyway, this is the chipping layer, or the undercoat, all done. A smooth, opaque coat. The layer lines are regretfully still visible, but that is sort of the nature of the beast with large, flat 3D prints like this. And now for the crux of the matter. We're going to apply Humbrol Maskol with a bit of kitchen sponge held with pliers. I often get asked if other liquid mask products by other brands work for this. The fact is, I have tried 3 other brands and none of them gave me the same results. You've been warned. First, we unload most of the product onto some kitchen paper, just as if we were dry brushing. Then we're going to gently dab our sponge at surface details, corners, and any other surfaces that might get wear and tear in real life. So here I'm starting to apply the mask onto the side of the hull. So long as you don't apply excessive pressure or use too much liquid mask, there is nothing to worry about. As you can see, controlling the placement and the size of the chips is really easy. If for some reason you get a patch of mask that you don't like, maybe a big blob, simply wait a few minutes and remove it. This will look really weird at first, but trust me, the end result will be worth it. As the mask dries, it becomes transparent. That lets you know that it's ready to be removed. As you can see, I'm able to target small details like rivets and also to create really fine in-scale chips. This requires some practice, but again, if you're not happy, just wait, remove it and try again. Unlike with hairspray chipping, or much less hand-painted chips, This has an integrated safety net, which is great for peace of mind. Okay, so it's time to apply our base coat. In this case, I went with a.k.a. Interactive Pale Green from the Real Colors line, which is made up of what we know as true lacquers. This I mixed 50-50 with Tamiya lacquer thinner, and then I sprayed it at 20 psi as usual. This makes for a super tough coat, which would react very little or not at all to hairspray or chipping fluid, but which has clear advantages for us when using this method. The first of these advantages is the ability to easily spray a semi-transparent layer, which is built up very gradually. Look at that beautiful slow transition from brown to green, guys. I took my time with this step and fully enjoyed it, among other things, because I didn't have to clean even the tip of my brush during the entire process. The second advantage has to do with what I was saying earlier in the video about whether using water-based acrylics was possible instead. As I already said, yes, it is possible, but when you see what I do to this poor tank in the next step, you will realize that having the toughness of lacquer paints is a nice plus. Before we move on to the main event, you can see here how I applied some highlights throughout the model. This is just a wargaming piece for my collection, so it's merely a quick job to make it a bit more interesting. I used a pale green mixed with a.k.a. flat white, this time with a bit more thinner than paint. Okay, so these are the results prior to chipping. Alright guys, time for some weathering porn, as I like to call it. This old flat brush is going to be the weapon with which I will quite literally attack the paint, as you will see. First I'm going to show you what happens in slow motion. I removed the sound from this clip, but I assure you, this was a very vigorous scrubbing. Now jokes aside, what you see happening is that I'm peeling off the liquid mask, obviously, but that is not all. The level of friction that I'm inflicting on the surface is also causing what I call mechanical weathering. In other words, we're not merely simulating scratches, paint fading, or chips, we're actually physically causing them. Combining lacquer paints, liquid mask chipping, and mechanical weathering in this fashion is probably like the best idea I've ever had as a modeler, and it has become my trademark. Now, I may not be a very good painter, but I am a pretty good teacher, and I can tell you that if, like me, you are quite far from being, I don't know, master like Night Shift, this method may not only be your best bet, but it's also loads of fun. Here you can see mechanical weathering again in slow motion. Notice the scratches and the paint fading taking place here. This turret is also a pretty good example, with some different textures at play. Anyway, these are the results at the end of this stage. As you can see, that side panel is looking pretty cool now. So again, can you do the same with water-based acrylics? Yes, but it would have to be gentler and basically forgo mechanical weathering. Is it still worth it then? Absolutely. Go ahead and give this a try, guys, regardless of which paints you use, and let me know how it goes. So here's my finished model. This was a fun and easy project, and liquid mask chipping is without a doubt my favorite technique. There is something oddly satisfying about scrubbing your model with a vengeance. I hope you've all enjoyed this video. Give this method a try and let me know how you liked it in the comments. By the way, if you're a Patreon supporter, our 7th Patreon-only video is coming out next week. Thank you for making our Discord such a great community, guys. So, if you want to learn more about the different types of paint chipping, click on the video on the left. And if you want to know more about this 3D printed tank, check out the one on the right. Thank you all, and remember, keep it up and weather it out.